Okay, so this is a video demonstration on C1V1 equals C2V2. So let me just explain the formula a little bit. C always stands for concentration and V always stands for volume. The 1 means initial and the 2 means final. Therefore, C1 is initial concentration and V1 is initial volume. And C2 is final concentration and V2 is final volume. So if we look at our question here, we have 3 different values given. We have a concentration right here of 25%. We have 500 milliliters here, that's a volume. And we also have 15% here, which is another concentration. So if we read the question, it says, what volume of 25% alcohol is needed to prepare 500 milliliters of a 15% alcohol solution? So 25% would be our C1, that's our initial concentration because we will be diluting it to 15%. So when I do these calculations, I like to write it out like this. C1 equals, V1 equals, C2 equals, and V2 equals. So if we know that this is C1, we can just put that right in there. And then moving on, we see we need to prepare 500 milliliters. So that would be our V2. Because that's what we want at the end. We want 500 milliliters of a 15% alcohol solution at the end. So now that we know that, we can put in 500 milliliters for our final volume. Now this 15% is our final concentration that we want. So we can plug that in right here at C2, 15%. So now that we know that, we have one blank spot in our little setup here, right here. So now that we have all the values plugged in, we can now work on the formula and how to rearrange it. So the important thing to note is that your blank one, the one you're looking for, will always be on the left-hand side of your equation. So we want to find V1, so when we set up our formula, it's going to look like V1 equals, and then we're going to have the equation on the other side. So another important thing to note that makes it super easy, look at the values you have already given. So you already have both of the final values and you're looking for one of the first values. You've already been given one, but you're looking for the second. So what you should do is keep the values that you already have been given together and put them at the top of your division equation for your formula. So since we have both C2 and V2, this is how you should set it up. 15% multiplied by 500 milliliters. And that's this is your C1, or your C2, and this is your V2. So keep them together. You never want to like mix and match and whatever. So now that we have C2 and V2, we can divide it by the only other value that was already given, which is 25%, which is also known as our C1. So just like to make it easier, always remember to keep your finals and your initials together. So obviously your V1 is what you're trying to find. So it's always going to go at the start of the equation before the equal sign. And then since you have both your final concentration and final volume, that's what you'll be putting at the top of your equation. And your only lone soldier, because we don't have V1, we only have C1, your lone soldier here is going at the bottom. But anyways, now that we have our formula set up nicely, you're going to put in your calculator 15 and ignore the fact that it's a percent, because if both of your concentrations are in percent, you can just forget that this symbol is even here. So just do 15 times 500, which equals 7,500. And then divide it by your C1, which is 25. So V1 equals 7,500 divided by 25, which equals 300. And because it's a volume and we're working with milliliters, it's 300 milliliters. So if we're doing a completely different question, I just want to show you how the formula can be rearranged to figure out any value. So in the first one, we were trying to find V1. And so this question, if only 25 milliliters of a 9% saline solution is available in the lab, how many milliliters of a 5% saline solution can be prepared using all available saline? So here's our formula. Okay. And then let's write out what we have. So what we have here, there's a value here of 25 milliliters. There's a concentration of 9%, and there's another concentration of 5%. So if only 25 milliliters of a saline solution is available in the lab, so that's our initial values. So the 9% is our initial concentration, because that's our concentration before we're diluting it to 5%. So C1 is 9%, and 25 milliliters is our V1, initial volume, because that's all we have in the lab, and we want to see how much we can get at the end, which is V2, out of what we have. And then, so we do know our final concentration of 5% here. So in this specific question, we're going to be looking for V2, and we're going to rearrange this formula to figure it out. So like I said before, whatever value we're looking for is going to be the start of our equation. So starting off, V2 equals, okay, we know this. Now, which two values on each side do we have? So you can literally just split it in half to see which side is full, basically. And if you look here, we have both values for C1 and V1. So that's going to be the top of your equation. So we're going to set it up 9% multiplied by 25 milliliters, because that's both values we have on the initial side, divided by our one lonely soldier here, which is 5%. And remember, you always divide by whatever you don't have on the one side, basically. So since you don't have V2 and you have these ones, always keep the two that you do have on the side together. So because you have both the initials, keep them together up here. And then since you only have, on the final side, you only have C2, that's the one you're going to be dividing by. So once you have your equation all set up nicely like this, it flows smoothly from there because all you have to do is enter it in your calculator now. So the way you enter it in your calculator, remember, ignore the percent signs because they're both in percentage. You don't have to convert anything. So it's literally V2 equals 9 times 25, which equals, 225. So V2 equals 225. So that's what this is, divided by the 5%, which is here, which equals 45. And since it's a volume and we're working with milliliters, it's 45 milliliters. So yeah, that's how it's done. I hope that helps.